Hello everyone, welcome back to our IELTS Grammar Masterclass, and today we are going to do a part one of a very important part of grammar. We're going to look at conditional sentences, and we're going to relate this to the IELTS speaking and also the writing part of the exam as well. So if you're not sure about conditionals, maybe you just wanted to brush up, then these two lessons are the lessons for you. Okay, let's begin with conditionals in general. Let's do an overview of them. So what exactly are they? Well, when we talk about conditionals, we are talking about a sentence or clause in the English grammar which expresses a relationship between two events or actions. So there's a connection there. And an important point to note, one is dependent on the other. So if it's dependent, it cannot stand alone. It relies on the independent clause. We'll look at this in a bit more detail, but it relies on the independent clause in order to make sense, to have this cause and effect relationship. So these sentences often involve we can call it an if clause, or the use of if to introduce a condition. So a condition is like a situation, and we can talk about a range of different conditions. They could be hypothetical, which means they might not be real, which means something that could happen but hasn't happened. They could be real, on the other hand. They could be consequences. So, for example, if one thing happens, then another thing happens, the consequence of an action. Or possibilities that might happen, but we are not sure. So they're really, really useful to express your ideas and opinions, add range to your speech and writing. A bit more information. So we have this cause and effect relationship, logical connections between different events or actions here. Okay, brilliant. So with that being said, then let's move to the first conditional. So today we are going to look at zero conditional and the first conditional. And then in part two, we'll look at the second and the third. So if that's something that you want to learn about, the zero and the first, this is the lesson for you, the part one today. Okay, zero conditional. What is this used for? This is used to talk about general truths, scientific facts, and situations that are always true. So this is important because we don't want to get this mixed up with the hypothetical possibilities. No. This is facts and truth. So that's the way you can remember zero conditional. And there's a formula. So just like our tenses, we can remember it in this formulaic structure if you want to as well. So we have our if. We kick things off with that word, if. Then we follow it in the present simple tense. Then the link here is also present simple. The dependent clause is present simple. Okay, so let's see this in action and we'll talk a bit more in depth about this one. So general truths then, let's focus on this. Things that are true. If you heat ice, it melts. So whenever ice is heated, it will always melt. This is a known truth, universal fact, science if you like as well. So something that is just always true. And you can see that present simple is there in the first if clause and in the subordinate clause as well, the it melts dependent clause. So it's quite easy to spot the zero conditional. We're just looking for that present simple with that if. Okay, another one, we've talked about this, scientific facts. It interlinks with the general truths. For example, if you mix sodium with water, it reacts violently. This is a fact. It is science. This always occurs. This is 100% every time. Consistent and observable phenomenon here. So zero conditional is really useful for scientific facts, things that are always true, and you can again see that present simple here. Okay then, and this interlinks with what we've been talking about, situations that are always true. If the sun sets, it gets dark. This is an undisputed fact. When there is no sun, darkness then follows. It's predictable, it's universal, everybody can agree on this one. And you see that present simple in the first part and in the second. Okay, a further point about zero conditionals. Well, if you are describing general truths, when things happen all the time, you can also use when instead of if in the condition part of the sentence, so in the first clause. And the meaning will, in fact, stay the same, so it won't change the meaning here. Let's have a look at this one. So, for example, if the temperature is 0 degrees, it snows. Relative general truth there. Obviously, there's various factors that go into that, variables, but on the whole, we can say this. And the meaning stays the same when we use when. So it doesn't change that here. So just another option for you and your zero conditionals. Okay, so another point to bear in mind with the zero conditionals, we are using them to talk about results that happen depending on this if. So we can actually change the certainty of the second action with what's called an adverb of frequency, how often something happens. We might have looked at this before with adverbs, but we can think of them as percentages. So 100% is certain to happen, 50% maybe sometimes, 0% never. So here we have a few examples. If it rains, I always take an umbrella with me. So we have that always, talking about the certainty there. When the sun shines in Spain, the weather is usually toasty. So usually is like 75% of the time. I never take the train if the buses are on time. Never, 0%. And when I find a good series on Netflix, I often binge it. Often is similar to usually, maybe a bit less, maybe 60%, 70%, something like that. So you can see how these adverbs of frequency can really make your zero conditionals even more specific if you want them to be. Okay then, so how does this differ from the first conditional? Okay, so what is the first conditional used for? How is it different from the zero conditional? Well, this is used to express real possibilities in the future. So it's actually quite different from the zero conditional. We're not talking about truths, we're talking about possible things that can happen in the future. Not in the present like the zero conditional. And we have a formula for you. If plus present simple, then we have our will, and then followed by our base form of the verb. So this is how we form the first conditional. So you can see it starts the same as the zero conditional. You think, oh, this might be similar. And then it takes a detour there with the future tense with will. Okay, so examples, and we'll go into more depth here. A real possibility in the future could be, if she studies hard, she will pass the exam. So we have if followed by present simple, then are, we now know it's, we know from the course, this is a modal verb, an auxiliary verb to express the future, will, and then the base form of the main verb pass before it's been altered or changed in any way. Okay, so this is the condition. Studying hard is the potential condition. And if this happens, then this can lead to a probable outcome. We're not sure, we can't be 100%, but it is likely that this will happen, that she will pass the exam. So there is this cause and effect relationship that if one condition is met, then something else, another condition will take place. Okay, another one. If it rains tomorrow, we will stay indoors. So the condition, rain tomorrow, is likely to occur, otherwise you wouldn't probably be thinking about it or speaking about it. And if this happens, well, the likely and probable condition with that is that the staying indoors will happen as a response, as a reaction to this. So this is a real possibility on this condition being met. So if it does rain, then it's highly likely that the subject will stay indoors here. Okay, another one. If you finish your work on time, we will go out for dinner. So what is the condition? Finishing work on time. That's what has to be fulfilled. And then the consequence will take place, which is going out for dinner. This becomes a real possibility then. This word consequence is an interesting one. It has a negative connotation, but here it's used in a positive situation. So then this becomes real. Sentences. Now, I think it's important to have a practice, see how you can use these in action with your IELTS preparation. Okay, a question for you. If you hard enough, you will find the solution to the problem. So we're not sure whether this is zero conditional, first conditional, but we need to fill in the blank. Do we want will work? Worked? Work? Or have worked? So have a think. Remember the two different formulas. So if it's zero conditional, we want present simple followed by present simple. If it's zero conditional, we want present simple followed by present simple. If it's first conditional, we want present simple with that if clause followed by will plus the base form. That's a bit of a clue. And if it is first conditional, maybe it is, the first part you want present simple. Okay, that's a clue for you. So have a think. See what would fit best. I think the best fit here for this conditional is work. If you work hard enough, you will find the solution to the problem. And explanation now, so we'll go into a bit more depth. This is a first conditional. So you have your work, if you work hard enough, that's present simple. You will. The clue there was will in the second clause. You will find the solution to the problem. So this is a real possibility in the future. That's another way that you can tell. Is it talking about the future or is it talking about the present? So what is the condition? If you work hard enough, this can then lead to the consequence, which is the solution to the problem. And it's likely, but we're unsure for certain, but it is a likely situation. Okay, let's do another one. That was a good practice. If you mix red and blue, you purple. Will get, would get, gotten. Okay, lots of different options here. So like I said, there's many ways you can look at this. You could look at this in the context or the situation. So what are we talking about here? Is it more of a general truth? Is it more of a possibility? You can think about the tenses. Which tenses are you looking at here? So have a think about this one and see whether you want to use perhaps future tense for the blank or present simple. I would use get for the present simple here. Let's go into a bit of an explanation. So this was the zero conditional. This is fact, science, it's a truth. Whenever you mix red and blue, the results are always purple. It's always true, and therefore it's a zero conditional. So actually, hopefully you're starting to see that, okay, zero conditionals and first conditionals are actually quite different, and it makes it a bit easier to spot each one. We've got another one for you. If water reaches 100 degrees Celsius, it boiling, boils, will boil, have boiled. Here's a clue after the last one. This might be a little bit easier because they are a similar situation. So for this one, have a think. I think the best fit would be boils because we want that present simple. If water reaches 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. This is a zero conditional, you might have guessed. It's a truth, it's a scientific fact. It always boils at 100 degrees. This is consistent. The condition and consequence are always the same. Therefore, it is a zero conditional. Okay, another question for us. If you sugar to tea, it becomes sweet. Add, take away, move, match. All right, have a think about this one. Is it a truth or is it a likely possibility in the future? Okay, so this one was add. It's another truth, a zero conditional, you might have guessed for that one. Explanation. It's always true. Sugar is very sweet and it consistently would make tea sweet. Okay, so we have another activity to do just to round off today. We have been tasked to find the conditionals in this paragraph. I'll read it out. So Alice decided to go for a walk in the park and it looked as if it might rain. She didn't have any waterproofs, so if it rains, she gets wet. Later that evening, she made a resolution. If it rains tomorrow, she will definitely carry an umbrella. Okay, so over to you. Have a look for those conditionals. There might be a clue with a certain word, but extra bonus points if you can decide what type of conditionals they are as well. So have a think and then we'll talk through it. So for this one, we have, if it rains, she gets wet. This can be considered a zero conditional. It's in the present and it's less of a scientific fact, but it's definitely something that is held to be true. In this situation, if you don't have any waterproofs as well, then that is sort of a given. And a resolution. So our first conditional, if it rains tomorrow, she will definitely carry an umbrella. So something that will happen in the future. Okay, so I hope that was useful for you to spot them within a sentence. And this is almost like a story, but you can see how they can be used in practice in speech and writing. Okay, well that was brilliant practice there. We've looked at the zero conditional and we've looked at the first conditional, and we can see that they are quite different and how we use both of them. So next time we're going to look at the second conditional and third conditional. See how they're perhaps similar, are they different, how can we use both of these, and hopefully that's been really helpful. So if you want to carry on with conditionals, we will see you in the next lesson.